Great. Okay. All right. Well, welcome. Thank you for joining this evening. This is a special meeting called by the chair. We will get started, and we will start out with roll call. It looks like everyone is in attendance for this. So we can move on. Is there any disclosure of interest this evening from anyone? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Confirmation of agenda. Any issues, comments, or concerns with the agenda this evening? It's pretty straightforward. Okay. Bobby, do you have a resolution for that? Please.
That the Alma Police Services Board approves the special meeting agenda of June 14th, 2022 as presented.
And I need a mover.
Seconded.
Okay. Seconded by Member Cookett this evening, Christine Scrimger and Heather Sachs from the town. And you are going to go over the 2021 draft financial statements. So I will share my screen, and you're welcome to follow along there. If there's any questions from any of the members, please speak up as we're going through. Address them at the time, so we'll start sharing those. Just let me know when you see it.
Bingo.
Okay, so it's pretty small. My apologies. I can make it.
Thank you for meeting tonight and getting these approved. As you know, the town council meets tomorrow night, and so we just wanted to get this approved before then. Just a little bit of preamble. The police chief, I did have a telephone meeting with the police chief, as well as he has seen these financial statements and has are satisfied that they capture the proper numbers for the year. So just wanted to make that comment. Couple things. So those charged with governance under Canadian auditing standards would be with this board. And so once you approve these financial statements, we can finalize them. They are consolidated into the town's financial statements and are dated. So it is a clean auditor's opinion. Sherry, if you want to come forward one more page to the independent auditor's report. So I am independent. So even though we do the various boards of the town, we still approach each audit as independent. So we do look at expenditures that get charged to the police services board to ensure that they are, not all of them, obviously statistically sampling into those to make sure that they are police services expenditures. Clearly, when we get to the income statement, most of your or a good portion of your expenses are in payroll, and we do a significant amount of payroll work on the police payroll just to ensure that those rates, as per the different contracts, are being paid to the various employees. And then we have concluded, based on this report, that we don't have anything immaterial that is materially incorrect. And so they are dated as of today's date, which hopefully this board will approve the statements as of this date. So I don't have it. So that if you want to come forward to the balance sheet, which is the next statement, there we go. Perfect. So a couple comments on this before we get into the numbers. As you remember, or you may remember from the subsequent to the year ending December 31st, 2020, council did decide to, so in previous years, we had just moved over to the police services exactly what they needed for the year to meet the expenditures that were required. So even though there was a budgeted amount that was approved in the budget, we only moved over the actual that was required. After 2020 year end, so that was how 2020 was presented. Then after 2020 year end, because it was after these financial statements got approved, council decided that, wait a minute, we've approved in the budget, this amount goes over to the police services. So we're going to honor that, and that will go over into a reserve for future use by the police services board. That still is under the authority of council, so that, you know, that they can make those changes. And so what we see is a significantly different balance sheet this year. So you see that due from town of Alma has moved from just under 100,000, the second number from the top, to almost 500,000, and that's because that really is 2020 and 2021's surplus that has been moved over into that reserve that I mentioned. So we'll see that when we get to the notes to the financial statements, but that number sticks out on these statements for sure. The other number that's large, and we've talked about it in the past, but just to remind the board that under liabilities, the second number, employee post-employment benefit liability. So what that is within the officer's contract, there is the provision to continue to pay benefits even after they've retired up into a certain age. And so that we accrue that in today's dollars. It's based on a statistical analysis done by an actuary that the town hires to give us that number. So it hasn't increased significantly, and a lot of that has to do with the age of your force. We've been replacing some of the older employees and longer-term employees with newer officers, and we'll see that when we get to wages as well, which are below budget because of that reason. So that net financial assets is about half of what used to be that deficit.
Christine, excuse me, Pete Barber, can I ask a question on that,
Sure.
on the liability?
Sure.
We've got $1.1 million of a liability, and there isn't any revenue stream to offset that in any way, shape, or form. Should we be doing that in the future? And if so, can we use the reserve funding, if for want of a better expression, and invest it appropriately?
So that's a really good question. And what happens is this isn't all going to get paid out in 1 year. It will get paid over a numerous number of years. And that really was the impetus behind putting that money aside for the police reserve, because at some point in time, so we pay this, so each year we are paying out of this amount for officers that are already retired, and we're paying out their benefits. And so really the new reserve that we've set up really could be used for that purpose exactly. Although in any one given year, it wouldn't be, the $1 million, it would be a much smaller portion of this.
What would be appropriate?
What would be, well, so you have put aside, so when we get to the notes, you have put aside, I think it's 500,000. Sorry, I just need to go to my screen here, just so I say the right number. Yeah, so you're just shy of 500,000, 481,000. So you've got about half already saved, which is significant. And so if you continue to have the kind of surpluses you have over the next 3 years, you would get there, because you've had about a 200,000.
That reserve is not all designated for the benefit liability, is it?
No, because part of each year's expenditures is actual payments out, right? So we are actually making payments each year. So we don't need to have the entire amount, but we do need to have something saved towards it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, can I ask a question related to that? Is there a way of finding out exactly how much we actually pay in any one given year for this particular line? Obviously we're not paying $1 million a year, but we're paying something to the people that are retired, and we have to know. We probably should know what the next year will entail, as the actuary can do that kind of thing.
Yes, and it's in their report. So each year this changes. So you can see at the end of 2020, it was lower by about $30,000, and that's really just your inflation on the balance that's owing. So less what we paid out. We aren't paying out significant amounts right now, and a lot of this won't, because the age of your officers is getting lower and lower. You're not going to be paying this out for a significant number of years because you've got a younger police force now.
Right, and basically that's what I was asking. Do we have a kind of table that you could show us that says in 2023, this is the amount we're paying out in 2024, this is the amount, et cetera, right down the line, so we can anticipate where the major hits would be in the future?
Yeah, we could get that for you for sure. So that's in the actuary's report. He doesn't go that far out because it all depends on the contracts that get signed by the officers. So he's got it up to, like he does. We have this done every 3 years, which is statutory requirement.
That's fine.
So,
Yeah.
so that can be provided by the treasurer for sure.
Well, that would give us a, an idea to, answer what Councillor Barber is talking about, I think.
Yeah. And it's right now, my recollection is it's between 30 and 40,000 that we're actually paying out in a year. So it's not in one given year, and that's what would have been expensed in this current year.
Good, thank you.
Okay, great questions. Under the non-financial assets, so those are your capital assets, net of amortization, and I'll remind the board, the building and the land is owned by the town. This is just simply your cruisers and various equipment pieces that belong to the police services board. Coming down to accumulate surplus deficit at the end of the year, and again, you can see it's down $400,000, and that's really that 2-year surpluses. There is approximately 200 grand each year of surplus. You then come to the statement of operations and accumulated surplus. So this shows your budget for 2021, your action for 2021, and then the action for 2020. And there's a couple numbers that stick out here that I'll talk about. So that first line, so the town received, or all municipalities in Ontario received what's called Safe Restart money. It's basically provided by the province for COVID-related expenditures. And so whatever expenditures the town or the police services board had related to that, we have allocated over to the police services board revenue to offset that from that grant. So you'll see that $32,899 appears in revenue, and then about the fourth line down under expenditures, it appears again. So it's a net zero effect, but it is costs that the police services board did incur. The government grants are increased because of a couple reasons. One was there was a grant that was received, or the chief went after and we got, and part of that paid for actually the new cruiser we got this year. So we didn't have to take money out of the reserve for that. That grant helped pay for it, as well as you can imagine. In 2020, there wasn't as much community service grants because there just wasn't as much activity. Obviously, moving prisoners, court dates. There weren't even any court dates for several months because of COVID. So the revenue was higher this year, higher than budget, because we just weren't sure what the ministry was going to do with that granting, and they have come back to the table and given the full grants again. So that was a bonus for this year. And then that requisition from Town of Aylmer, you'll see it's over budget, and that's only because we moved over both 2020 surplus and 2021 surplus. So that's why that number's high.
Right.
Under expenditures, I don't have a lot to say on this other than, obviously, if you look at the bottom expenditure number or total of 2.5 million, you can see there that 2.1 million, almost 2.2 million is wages and benefits. So that's why I said at the beginning, that's where we concentrate a lot of our time as auditors on, making sure that number, because it obviously is a significant percentage of your overall expenditures. And I'll remind the board that amortization, that second line, is not budgeted for. So that's the amortization on those assets that I mentioned. And again, not the building, just the cruisers. So we bought one new cruiser this year, and we sold and disposed of one as well. So coming down, and then below the line is the police services board, which nets to zero, and then that change of $30,000 that I mentioned in the post-retirement benefits. Coming down to that deficit at the end of the year that equals the balance sheet. Any questions on that statement at all?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we get into this net change in cash flow. I won't spend a lot of time on this because we've talked about that large number, that 439,000, which is the change in the due from Aylmer, which is because the police services does not have its separate bank account as such. So that money is in the Aylmer's bank account, waiting for as a reserve. And then we get to the next statement, which is, yeah, so this just Yeah, so that just shows the increases and decreases in the non-cash or the capital items. So there's where we amortize it, and then we got a new vehicle for 21,000. And then we get to the notes to the financial statements. I don't have a lot to say. I would ask if you don't mind going forward to the this next page. It should be, sorry, one more. Sorry. Yeah, there. So this is a breakdown of that surplus deficit number. So you'll see there we had a reserve fund at the end of 2020 of only 43,000, which clearly is not enough money to even start being able to pay out those benefits. And now you see it's 481,000. And again, I'll remind you, this is a reserve fund policy set by the town. And it was changed to accommodate more money being put into the police reserve fund. And then we have the assumptions made. And again, even if you look at this, you'll see general inflation. Well, we all know that 3%, this is what was projected. Probably not realistic as we going forward right now, but this is what it was based on when it was completed in 2021.
Good.
And then I don't believe there's much else so we just have dispatch as a commitment, and then the significant event, and just talking about the whole safe restart money that I mentioned before.
Great. All right. Thank you. Any questions or concerns from any of the members? I can't see anyone, so you'll have to speak up.
I don't see any.
Nope.
Great. All right.
Nope.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the detailed report. Bobby, do you, sorry, Heather, did you have any comments or questions or concerns with this?
Through you, Sherry, to the PSB members, I just wanted to thank Christine and her team for, going through this again this year with us. And, we're making things more transparent, I believe. So less, things open for interpretation. And if there's anything else that you guys want sent through the chief, I'd be happy to provide it. And I again, just wanted to thank everybody for having this special meeting so that we could meet our timing with everything else. And that's all I had to add.
That's great. Yes. Thank you both so much for your support during this. And I know we had some challenges with scheduling. So thank you for all the changes back and forth. So I appreciate that. Bobby, do you have a resolution for us on this, please?
That the Alma Police Services Board approves the draft 2021 financial statements as presented by Christine Scrimger on June 14th, 2022, and further that the documents be forwarded to Town Council.
Right.
Moved by Bill.
Seconder by
I'll
Member
second
Cookett. All right. And all those in favor? Great. Thank you. And that is carried. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thank
Have
you.
a lovely evening, ladies.
We'll see
and
you again
we will,
tomorrow night.
Yes. All right. Yeah, for sure. Thanks
You'll be
so
sick
much.
of me by the end of this last week of this week. Anyway, thank you.
Never.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a great
Thank
night,
you.
everyone.
You too.
Good night.
Thank you too,
Take care.
Christine.
All righty. So we can move along to the next item, and the meeting date is June 21st. That will be our regular scheduled PSB meeting. And last item is adjournment. Bobby, do you have a resolution for that?
That the Alma Police Services Board does now adjourn at 5:49 p.m.
So moved.
Great.
Seconded by Bill.
All righty. Did you get those, Bobby?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And all those in favor? All right, that is carried. Thank you so much. Great questions. And we will see everyone in a week. Have a great night.
До свидания.
See you,
Good
everybody.
night.
Take care. Bye.